Mayor DeMargo, the mayor of El Paso, Texas, our host mayor, and I will then pass the microphone to our Vice President, Brian Barnett, the mayor of Rochester Hills, Michigan. Mayor Margo.
Thank you, Steve. It's an honor and a privilege for El Paso to host this group. By way of introduction, we are the largest U.S. city on the Mexican border. We are the 6th largest city in the state of Texas. We are the 19th largest city in the United States. We're the nexus of 3 states, New Mexico, Chihuahua, and Texas, and 2 countries and 1 region of 2.7 million people. We are the border and have been so for over 400 years. We are the largest bilingual, bicultural, binational community in the world. This is where immigration should be discussed, not in Washington, but here on the border. And I'm appreciative of the opportunity to host my fellow mayors. The program, I can echo and reiterate what Steve said, but at the same time, this is neither a Republican nor a Democratic process. This is something that needs to be handled out of Washington, D.C. Immigration is all-encompassing. It's not just the fact that they're separating children in an inhumane manner. It's the fact is that we need to reconcile and resolve our immigration process with DACA, with the undocumented immigrants that are here today, and we need to improve our visa process. I heard today of a particular Congresswoman talking about the tax bill, talking about immigration and the fact that the Goodlatte bill was limiting legal immigration, and then she pivots into the tax bill that was passed earlier this year and the fact that we don't have enough workers for jobs. Well, legal immigration will help solve some of that. So they need to get their act together, they need to develop some intestinal fortitude, and they need to move forward to do things that they've talked about for over 30 years. So we're pleased to be here in El Paso. As I say, we are the community that represents, that is the poster child for immigration and bicultural relations, and has been for over 400 years. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor Margo. Mayor Brian Barnett, Vice President of the Council of Mayors.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Benjamin, and thank you, Mayor Margo, for the invitation. Many of us, it's our first time to El Paso, certainly to this border region, and we certainly appreciate your hospitality and that of your team. You've been incredibly welcoming, and we appreciate that. As was mentioned, the nation's mayors are here today to stand with you, Mayor Margo, and to witness firsthand the results of a nation's broken immigration policy. It was Nelson Mandela who said, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than in the way in which they treat their children." So let me echo the comments of my colleague and close friend, Mayor Benjamin. We must and are here today to appeal to those better angels in how we handle this topic. In so many ways, we've created our own chaos. The number of times immigration legislation is passed in this Congress is 0. And in the greatest nation on earth, we uphold an immigration policy that separates children, even the youngest children, from parents. We place these children in tents like the ones we stand in front of today, or we ship them to shelters like the one in my state, Bethany Christian Services, which, as of this morning, is housing 81 children, nearly 1,600 miles from their parents. And we don't change this policy until every living First Lady has to explain it to us in very plain language that it's simply not the right thing to do. And it starts all over again. A chorus of complaints and attacks and finger-pointing and accusations. Republicans, Democrats, everyone saying a lot and doing very little. We've created our own collective chaos here. But we all have responsibility. And I'd like to believe that even this week, as we've seen the needle move, that we've reached a point of reconciliation, that maybe enough babies have cried and parents have shed enough tears that we're starting to see some change. The President's executive order is a welcome start. We also appreciate the direction of formal legislation that desires to keep families together while immigration cases are pending, that allows for asylum cases to be adjudicated quickly, increasing the number of judges and certainly providing the revenue needed to accomplish all of those. It's a start, but it is nowhere near the finish. There's a defining opportunity in front of us right now to combine our respect for the rule of law with human decency, civility, and kindness. An opportunity to work together and to calm this chaos. Mayors have done and are doing right now what we've done so many times in our nation's past. We're demanding change and we're leading it. I'm no longer interested in blame, and I don't think many of us are here as well. We're interested and driven by the legacy that we're leaving our children, my children in Michigan and the children sleeping behind us. My sincere thanks to you, Mayor Margo, for inviting us here as we all look to continue our work on this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor Barnett. Now I'll ask Mayor Eric Garcia of Los Angeles, please.
Thank you so much, Mayor Benjamin, and Mayor Margo, thank you for your powerful words and for hosting us. Thank you, Brian, as well. And I'm so proud to be an American mayor today. I'm so proud of the United States Conference of Mayors. I'm so proud to stand with Americans who are here today from across the country, from across the aisle, with two clear messages. It is time to reunify families, and it is time to fix a broken immigration system. We must do those two things. We've seen, like our fellow Americans, the heartbreaking images and stories, heard the cries, seen an infant torn away from his mother while she was feeding him, a 10-year-old with Down syndrome mocked on television, a toddler who is responsible for changing the diapers of an infant because there's no mother or father around. We are better than this. We are America. This is not who we are, and it is not a reflection of the men and women that are here behind us, and I believe the Americans we represent. Yesterday was the right thing to do, but it leaves as many questions unanswered as it resolves. We have over 2,000 children still far away from their parents, and hundreds of them streaming into our cities, over 100 in my city. We don't know any information about them. We have to find out from activists instead of from the government, and it is time for our federal partners to join with us, because America's mayors are ready to roll up our sleeves to resolve this situation, to reunify families, and most importantly, to pass long-serving and long-standing comprehensive solutions to our broken immigration system. Children are not poker chips. They are people. And we demand that Washington fix the mess that it has created. We know in America's cities the price that people pay. We know the stories. And while we want things like secure borders, and we want to have clear laws, it is time for us to find our heart again. And we call on this administration to do that, and to do it now. Those cries we heard a couple days ago probably happened again last night behind us. And they will happen again tonight, and every night until these children are reunified with their parents. Lastly, I want to say that this is personal for me. My grandfather 100 years ago crossed right here in El Paso, coming up from Mexico as a 1-year-old baby in the arms of my great-grandmother. And my grandfather Salvador, I can only imagine that if when he arrived at this country, fleeing war, fleeing violence, having had his father killed just days before, was ripped from the arms of his mother, I don't know what would have happened. I certainly don't think I would be here today. Yo quiero decir también en español, nosotros, alcaldes, están listos a trabajar juntos con Washington, a pasar reforma comprensiva a nuestras leyes migratorias. Pero estamos aquí, en Tornillo, en la frontera del sur, alcaldes de todo el país, de todos partidos, con un mensaje muy simple y claro. Ya es hora de reunir a nuestras familias inmigrantes. Lo que está pasando aquí en la frontera es inmoral e inhumano. No tienes que ser un padre o una madre para saber que los niños nunca se pueden utilizar como piezas de negociación en Washington. Estas familias se tienen que mantener juntos. Punto. Nuestro sistema es roto y Washington debe reparar esta situación inmediatamente, ahora. Finalmente, este es muy personal para mí. Mi abuelo Salvador cruzó esta frontera hace un siglo como un bebé en los brazos de su mamá. Imagina si hubiera sido arrancado de los brazos de su mamá. Yo no estaré aquí hoy. Somos mejores de esto. Este país es mejor de esto. Ya es hora que el presidente acabe inmediatamente con la política de cero tolerancia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eric. Mayor de Blasio, trustee, U.S. Council of Mayors.
You're seeing something right here at the border that you haven't seen enough of. Gathering of leaders who look like America, Republican and Democrat alike, in common cause. Even in this moment of crisis, there are some seeds of hope here. Because all of us believe that change is needed and all of us want to be part of that solution. And we can talk to each other and we can hear each other. Mayor Margo is right. I thank him and everyone for being here because the change has to happen on the ground in this country. It has to happen in the hearts of Americans, and it has to happen because leaders decide we won't tolerate an inhumane situation anymore. So you're looking at some bipartisanship right now. You're looking at some purpose. We came here to tell the American people there is that hope. Let's be honest that the pain brought us here. The pain of knowing that children were taken from their mothers, the pain of knowing that they don't know, those kids don't know when they will see their parents again. The pain of knowing our government will not tell us the truth. We're going to go over there all together, representing cities from all over this country, and we fully expect, tragically, we fully expect to not be told the truth. We fully expect to be turned away the way senators and congressmen have been turned away, just trying to get the honest truth about what's happening to these children, just as all of you have been doing. That's painful for all of us who believe in America and believe in democracy. It's painful that I had to find out in my own city yesterday. I walked into a center, a social service center in East Harlem, to find that 239 children who were taken from their parents under the family separation policy had been sent 2,000 miles away. And they don't know when they're going to see their parents again. I walked into a classroom, almost 40 young children from Guatemala, trying somehow to find some normalcy. Their teachers trying to help them. These kids have been traumatized. These kids are suffering physically and mentally. A young boy named Eddie, 9 years old, from Honduras, taken from his mom at Eagle Pass, Texas, put on a bus to travel 2,000 miles to New York City. Think of how broken that is, and our government didn't even tell us it was happening. But I'll finish on a point of hope, because there are those moments when you can feel the dams breaking and the change is coming. And what you see around you is an indication of that. The president retreated today, has not solved the problem. We're all saying that. Zero tolerance still exists. That's breaking an American tradition of respecting people fleeing oppression. The families are not reunified. We don't know when they'll be. We're going to fight for that. But the hope is the people are demanding a change, and it cannot be ignored. And if it won't happen in Washington, we will make it happen.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. Mayor Steve Adler, the Mayor of Austin, and the trustee, U.S. Council of Mayors.
Thank you, Mr. President, Vice President, and DeMargo, thank you, Mayor. Using children in order to deter or dissuade folks from coming to our border and seeking asylum is unjust, it is wrong, it is immoral, and it is un-American. We are better than that. This is about children. The reason that we're here today is about the children. And that was true when our communities spoke. It was true when we started this trip to El Paso, and it is still true today. There are over 2,300 children separated from their families. We don't know when they're going to get unified. There are thousands of children that came to this country unaccompanied. Many, if not most of them, have families in this country. They should be with their families. Children do not belong in cages. They don't belong in cages with or without their parents. This started out about children. It remains about children. And it is about children as we move forward tomorrow. there is something we have to take note of, especially right now. The only reason that there has been any measure of change at the national level, the reason that we are here, the reason that you're here with us, is because the people in our communities stood up and used their voices to express outrage at what was happening. We have to take a moment to notice and to celebrate the power of that collective voice. When we see things that are happening in our country that we think are wrong, that are immoral, and that are unjust, it is individuals standing up and joining their voices together to make a collective voice that has power and strength. We can change things in this country one voice at a time, joining together. That is our charge going forward, because the children still need us. They need our collective voice. Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson of Gary, Indiana, and incoming president of the National League of Cities.
Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, for your leadership. Mayor Margo, for your being a gracious host. Like so many of the mayors here and those around the country, like so many of you and citizens across the United States, I have watched with great sadness and horror as we have seen the implementation of a policy play out across these nations' airwaves and throughout our country. But as mayors, those elected officials who are closest to the people, those who hear, see, touch, and feel the people every day, we cannot allow that horror to paralyze us. And so we are here not just as a message to our country, to Congress, to our president, but we are here to say that we work every day in a bipartisan way to solve problems. It is no mistake that you see many of the mayors here with our sleeves rolled up. And that's because we get the work done. And so we say to the administration, to Congress, we are willing to work with you because it is imperative that we solve this problem. We know that the executive order did it. We know that there are a multitude of layers and nuances to really getting this family separation issue right, but we know that the ultimate solution lies in comprehensive immigration reform, and we offer ourselves as proven problem solvers to stand with you to get the job done, because the American people are owed better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeman Wilson. And now the co-chair of our immigration task force, the mayor of Anaheim, California, Tom Tate.
Thank you, Steve. I am co-chair of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Immigration Task Force. I've been that for about 6 years. We've been working for 6 years on urging Congress in Washington for comprehensive immigration reform. Bipartisan, actually nonpartisan. My co-chair is Jorge Elorza, mayor of Providence, a Democrat from the East Coast. I'm Republican from California. The symbolism is on purpose, that mayors across the country, we deal with this immigration, a broken immigration system, day in and day out. What we see here today is a tragedy. And thankfully, the right thing happened yesterday. But there are a lot of right things ahead of us that need to happen. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We are hoping as mayors that this tragic event here and us coming together will serve as a catalyst for a movement in this country to finally get comprehensive immigration reform. The next thing is the dreamers. There are hundreds of thousands of people in limbo, not to mention their parents. And people in my city, tens of thousands of people in my city living in the shadow, who cannot take part in our community. That is something that we have to fix. That's why, mayors, we deal with this. That's why we're coming together today here in El Paso to get this started, to get this movement started. This today is a catalyst. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to call on Mayor Jenny Durkin, the mayor of Seattle, Washington.
Thank you very much. I come to you today and stand here as the mayor of Seattle, Washington, which is one of the fastest growing, most innovative cities in this country, that has a large population of immigrants and refugees who contribute every day to the innovation and fabric of our city. We try to every day make real on the promise of sanctuary for those immigrants and refugees. But I also come to you as a mother, as a former federal prosecutor, as the granddaughter of a teenager who left a war-torn country and was welcomed in America, and I come to you as an American. There are moments in time in the arc and history of a nation that test that nation's resolve, its conscience, and its heart. And today, we are at that moment. How our nation reacts today will define who we are as a country. We stand here as mayors, as fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, mothers, to say we are better than this as a country. We are so much better than this, and the promise of America is better than this. Our collective voices will join with voices throughout this country until this problem, this challenge, this moral crisis is resolved. I will say to you, as a former federal prosecutor who prosecuted a range of crimes at a border, who went against Mexican drug cartels, who did immigration cases, nothing we are doing today makes our country any safer. And instead, it degrades the moral conscience of our country. Look not just at us as mayors, look around you. Look around you. Is this desert anywhere any of us would put children? Every one of those children has families, parents that they have been separated from. We have seen the horror to know that children are being parceled out like they are commodities throughout the country in the dead of night. They have no idea who their parents are. So every American should know nothing changed with that executive order except for the words. We must stand strong until the action change, until those children are reunited with every parent, until the policy at the border changes, until we fix our broken immigration policy, and until we as a country recommit to the values that founded us, that we welcome people, we are built on diversity, and that we will be a better nation going forward when we recognize the promise and truth of America, which we are breaking every day with this policy of this administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Durkin. And I've intentionally mixed up the order show and run a show because I want to say these are cities. Cities can't be gerrymandered. We have mayors, unless you know us individually, you don't know the parties that we represent. We represent America. We represent our cities. We represent American values. I'm going to ask Mayor Lydia Mihalik of Findlay, Ohio, the chair of our Children Health and Human Services Committee. Please come up.
Thank you very much, Mayor Benjamin, and thank you all for being here to allow us to communicate to the country and to the world that this is definitely not okay. What you're seeing here transpire over the last several weeks is a manifestation of an inability to act in Congress. We have grave concerns about the way that the children are being treated. We'd like to be able to see how the most young of this group of children is being treated. Where are they being housed? What resources can be brought to bear from the federal government to ensure that these children get back to their families as soon as possible? The executive order was a step in the right direction, but as my fellow mayors have said, we have many steps left to take. And my hope is that what you're seeing here, this nonpartisan, bipartisan group of mayors representing millions of people from across this country, they're here. They're here because we are representing those voices of people that feel helpless. They feel as though there's nothing that they can do. I don't know how many of my constituents have told me in the last 24 hours that they're proud of mayors from across this country who are coming together to be the voice of reason. And I'm proud of this conference, and I'm proud of my colleagues, and you can bet that this won't be the last day that you'll hear from us for action. This country is better than this. We should be an example to the world, not someone that the world can shame. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor of Miami, Florida, Francis Suarez, a member of the Advisory Committee of the USTM.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. As a son of Cuban immigrants and a father of two, I've been appalled at what we've seen and heard and read. It's tough for me to leave my 2-month-old daughter to be here. It hurts me to be separated from her. I can't even imagine the pain that parents are feeling and the trauma that the children are going through. There are still a ton of unanswered questions. When are these children going to be reunited with their families? What kind of conditions are they living in? Why are we, a bipartisan, nonpartisan group, being denied access to these facilities? What's there to hide? And there are facilities across the United States. I tried to gain access to one in Homestead and wasn't allowed to. And I'm going to try to continue to gain access to the one in Homestead when I return to Miami. There are a lot of questions. We are here to get answers, and we're hopeful that those answers will reflect the morality and the ethics that this country was founded on. We're a country of immigrants. That is what made us strong and what makes us special, and it's something we shouldn't run from, we shouldn't hide from. It's not a partisan issue, it's a humanitarian issue. Yo soy hijo de dos exiliados cubanos, soy padre de dos niños, y estoy horrorizado en pensar que hay niños que no pueden dormir conjunto con sus padres esta noche. Nosotros todavía tenemos muchas preguntas sin contestar. ¿Cuándo se van a reunificar estas familias con sus padres? ¿En qué condición están viviendo? ¿Por qué nos están negando a nosotros, un grupo no partidista, acceso a esta facilidad, a este campamento? Este país fue fundado sobre los principios de inmigración, de moralidad, y el hecho de que tenemos que estar parados aquí, nosotros separados de nuestras familias, en este momento, difícilmente, no se puede imaginar, mis niños tienen el mismo valor que los niños que están en estos campamentos. Y para mí, siendo padre, siendo hijo de exiliado, de inmigrante, quiero pedirle a los gobernantes federales que por favor, esto no es un tema partidista, esto es un tema humanitario, en cual tenemos una oportunidad de reflexionar los valores de esta nación, una nación increíble, una nación que da esperanza al mundo normalmente y típicamente. Deberemos de reflexionar esos valores en este tema y mucho más. Gracias. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Suarez. Mayor Christopher Cabaldo in West Sacramento, California.
It is an axiom of our American democratic system that the buck stops at City Hall. That mayors cannot avoid the people of our communities. We must embrace each other, whether we're in the supermarket, in the post office, in a local pub, at the ballpark. We hear the voices of real America, of Main Street. Hear them also. Hear the school teacher who I ran into in the supermarket just a couple of days ago, who's having to explain to one of her students, one of her third graders, the difference between what it means to be an animal and what it means to be a child. And that she's not an infection, but that she can go home tonight with her parents, and every child deserves the same. Hear the voice of the man that seems to always be at the local pub, having a drink, who hates politics, probably didn't vote for me. And yet, he asks How could we have fallen so far as a country? How could we have lost so much of our sense of ourselves and our soul? Hear the voice of the young man who just came back from his tour of duty and was getting a ball game at our local ballpark, who wants to know what happened to the country while he was gone, the country that he's been defending, and what can we do together to make it happen. Hear the voices of Main Street. And Main Street, keep rising those voices. Thank God for these children. Thank God for their strength and their courage, and they need us, but we need them too. Because as we are here to rescue the children, we are also here to rescue our own souls as Americans, and to speak up for the people of Main Street America who have had enough, and looking in the mirror and seeing the faces of children, listening to the sounds of children screaming, has awakened in them a sense of power that they weren't sure that they had. And America, you have it. And we are here today to bring the stories from small towns like mine and the big cities. Main Street America saying enough is enough. Let's get the immediate reunification of the families, get comprehensive immigration reform, and let us never sink to the depths that we have over these past few days as America.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Cabaldo. Mayor Joe Ganim of Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Mayor, thanks. Much has been said, but I want to just add my voice and face and thank these mayors, this bipartisan group of leaders from across the country. I look at the sign over here, Reunite Families, so close to the American flag, and know that although we can't order the federal government to do anything, we can hear, as the mayors of the largest cities speak, I believe, for the American people in many ways, and tell them about how this tragedy, this immoral action and actions that continue need to stop. America won't stand for it. The mayors speak in unison here. Some of these young people are in Bridgeport, Connecticut, all across the country, in all of our cities and towns. They are citizens, individuals that we need to fight for, to raise our voices for. We turn out a dime to be here, to hopefully have an impact on public policy. Through you, hopefully they're listening. Hopefully positive change will happen. This will stop. And we can begin to regain what we think is the great heart of America from our federal government. Mayor, I'll go back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ganim. Now, my friend Mayor Hardy Davis, the mayor of Augusta, member of our advisory board, and the vice president of the African American Mayors Association.
Thank you, Mayor Benjamin. I'm pleased to join my fellow mayors here today. As mayors, we're tasked with not only enforcing the laws of our local cities, but upholding the laws of our state and our federal government. But today is more than that. Today is a day that we call for action of reuniting families, families that have been broken apart. When you think about the 2,300 children who are here and across this country who have been brought here, I'm reminded of the words of Jesus. He said, "Let the children come to me. Do not stop them. Allow them to come that they might receive." Every day we as mayors are working to build cities that are inclusive, cities that are diverse, cities that provide opportunities, but not just for our citizens, but for those who will come seeking shelter, seeking asylum. Today we're here because the least of these, the most vulnerable of our populations, those who have come and said, we want shelter, we want opportunity. That is why we stand and we urge this administration to move beyond the executive order and put together a clear plan of action of how and when these families, these children will be reunited swiftly and not months from now. That is why we're here, and that is why we stand collectively as mayors who lead our cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Next we have Mayor Alan Weber of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and he'll be followed by the mayor of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Thank you, Steve.
Please.
Thank you, Steve. I'm the mayor of a majority-minority city. I'm a mayor of a city that looks like and is the future of America. We're a sanctuary city. We're an immigrant-friendly city, and we believe that diversity is strength and that our culture unites us and our values unite us. Now let me ask you a question. How many of you would like your children sleeping in one of these tents tonight? As a father, I know I wouldn't. I know that more than 300 mothers gathered last night in Santa Fe to say that they care deeply about these children. These are our children. These are all of our children. And we need to take responsibility for what happens to them, and we need to love them the way we love our own children. Now, the president has signed an executive order. This is the same president who began his campaign by declaring that Mexicans are rapists and murderers. This is the same president who has run on the idea of a wall to separate people rather than a bridge to connect people. He has said he still believes in his zero tolerance policy. We believe in a zero confidence policy, that he has the heart and the soul to do what's right for this country and for these children, and that's why as mayors we're here today. We're here because we have to give voice to this moment of crisis, this moral moment. We have to say we know wrong when we see it. We know evil when we see it, and we will not tolerate it. We're going to stand together, and we're going to stand for these children and for what's right with America, for the values of this country. We want these children united with their parents. We want this policy, this practice to stop, and we want the children who have been terrorized and traumatized to get the help they need. But every day in Santa Fe, we have children terrorized and traumatized by unwarranted ICE raids that hurts families who are here, that separates them from their parents who are making a living, doing decent work, respectful work, who are living the American dream every day, and they're being denied their rights just as much as these children and these families are here. This crisis calls us to respond. It calls out the best in all of us to make a difference, to be on the side of what's right, to look at this historic moment and decide we are not going to tolerate it anymore. We are tired of lies, and we are tired of racist rhetoric, and we are going to do what's right now, and what's right going forward. You know, mayors and elected officials like to end speeches with the plea for God to bless America. I want to end my brief talk with a brief prayer that these children's lives will get better and that they'll be reunited with their families, that our country will regain its soul and rediscover what's right about America, that we will not accept what we know is wrong, and that when we look at this moment, we will say, this was a point when America stood up, its young people, its old people, people across the country, in communities across the country, and said we need to regain America's soul. And I hope God will bless America.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. All right. The Mayor of Albuquerque. There you go.
Thank you. I stand here before you as the mayor of Albuquerque, but also, and I think first and foremost, as a parent. And I don't stand here alone. Today, my wife and I, the First Lady of Albuquerque, wanted to come here together as parents because we are carrying the heartache and we are carrying the anger that every parent in our city, I think our country, and around the world carries.
We had the good fortune last night to kiss our 2- and 4-year-old and hug them before they went to bed and before we drove down here. And we are heartbroken beyond words as we think of the families, the parents, the kids, the babies even younger than ours who have been torn apart and forced to say indefinite goodbyes. So we are proud to stand with all of these mayors, and we are proud to stand with the heartbroken parents, families all over this country and all over this world who have risen up to fight for change, to fight for reunification, and to begin the long process to fight for healing the trauma and the pain we have caused.
We stand here with what's behind us to say that it is absolutely incomprehensible what is happening in our country right now on the border. And I know we told our 4-year-old that we were coming down here. She saw some of this on TV. She sees the children in their cots with their silver emergency blankets. And she asked us to take them some of her stuffed animals, which is what we have here today. She got that one for Christmas, I remember, just last year. And for us, how we did not have the heart to explain to her what is actually going on here. We didn't have the heart to tell her that it's not just stuffed animals. It's their parents. And how can anyone explain this to a 4-year-old, let alone explain this to ourselves? And that's because it's wrong. These are dark days in America, especially on the border. When we hear our leaders echo language that sounds eerily similar to Jim Crow, to internment camps, to the Holocaust, when we see our country take actions that literally betrays basic humanity, these are dark days. These are dark days when we have to even be here with you today, when mayors from all around the country have to stand here and tell our federal government what they're doing is wrong. But we are coming together, and we saw what happens when we do that. We are coming together across this country. We are coming together across cities, across states, and we are coming together across parties. And we know what happens when we do that. We start to see change. And even though it might only be in words only, we know that we actually can make a difference if we keep this up. And that's why together we have the power to stand up and say that indefinite internment is wrong under any situation, and we will not stand for it in America. We have the power to stand up and say that these families have to be reunified. We have the power to stand up and say that we have to help these kids. We have to help them with the trauma that they've been through, and we have to help them find their parents once again. And I believe that's why I am so proud of the mayors, of everyone in America, everyone who is sharing their voice, because we are starting just the beginning to make a difference. We are starting on a long road that might end several years from now, but it is going to be a road that makes this a country we believe in. Thank you.
We're thankful that Albuquerque's in such great hands. I want to ask the mayor of Novato, California, Josh Friday, to take the microphone.
Thank you. As a father and as a mayor, I'm proud to stand here in this bipartisan group because it is our job to solve problems, and it is our job to make people's lives better. And these cruel policies that have been put in place do neither. And as I stand here as a mayor, I reflect upon my service in the United States military as an officer in the Navy, where I was ordered to serve and work on the military commissions in Guantanamo Bay, working behind fences that look like those behind us, where I learned firsthand that when we jettison our morality, when we turn our back on basic humanity, and when we skirt the rule of law and start pursuing things like indefinite detention, we don't solve problems. We don't make our communities safer, more secure. We do the opposite. And I'm proud to stand here today with this group to call on our country to bring thousands of children back to their families, to reunite them today, and to solve a problem that we did not need to cause. It is time for our country to remember that it is our job to protect people, not to hurt people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Friday. And speaking last amongst the mayors, I'm asking the mayor of Central Falls, Rhode Island, James Diosa, to have a word.
Thank you, President Benjamin, and all the mayors here for the coverage of coming down to Tornillo and stand up against this injustice. This has been an emotional one for me, not only to know that there are kids and there's tents behind us, but also 40 years ago my dad crossed this border, and I can't imagine what he had gone through. Quiero decirle que estoy muy agradecido con los alcaldes hoy por venir a Tornillo para decir de que estamos con las familias que están aquí, con los niños. De verdad que esta visita ha sido muy emocionante para mí porque sé lo que está sufriendo esos niños y sé que mi papá, que cruzó hace 40 años, también sufrió mucho. Estoy muy agradecido con todos y gracias al United States Conference of Mayors.
Thank you, Mayor Diosa. All right. We're going to go into a period of questions that you may have of the mayors collectively or individually. Please.
What
go back to 2014 in many cases. What's your proposal for those, given that the unaccompanied children, do you have a legal process that's pretty specified in federal law that requires the Department of Health and Human Services take them into their care until a sponsor can be found?
Oh, sure. And let me make sure we got your question there. I heard
I think the question is about what is a proposal relating to what policies would work differently given the existing detention and immigration facilities that we have.
To be clear, going forward, these not Tornillo specifically, but many other child youth shelters for unaccompanied immigrant children have long been in place, some since the 2014 surge of unaccompanied without their parents arriving at the border. So what do you suggest going forward, given that currently...
Number one, and this is, I'm not speaking as the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I'm speaking as the Mayor of Seattle, Jenny Durker, former U.S. Attorney. I joined with over 80 former U.S. attorneys sending a letter to the Department of Justice. A significant difference that people don't realize is the zero tolerance policy is new. It was created by this administration. As a result of that policy, thousands and thousands of children are being apprehended, and there is no other word for it, that were not under other policies. The facilities that existed before existed for the previous policies, which is misdemeanor policies under federal law are the lowest level of offenses. They are normally not prosecuted. Families are immediately deported across the border. This president has made the decision to charge tens of thousands of people, which has led to this crisis of thousands of children. The way to stop it is to stop that policy.
That's not my question, actually. Under the 2008 anti-trafficking law that governs unaccompanied children, children who arrive entirely on their own, they must go to an HHS shelter before being reunited with their relative or sponsor.
The problem is that shelter system has been overwhelmed by this policy. The reason that those children cannot be reunified is because the system has been overwhelmed by this policy. It is unclear whether the children who are separated from their families are being treated as unaccompanied minors. They do not know where these children's parents are. This is a humanitarian crisis. I'll return to you.
Do you want to say something, Eric?
One other thing on that is it's very important. We're seeing that legal counsel is not getting access to these children and to these families, both unaccompanied and originally accompanied minors. We do stand for the rule of law, and we do stand for the rights of all people. And it is very important that folks out there that are listening continue to help those legislators that are looking for legislative fixes and demand access for lawyers to represent these cases. We need to make sure there are children who maybe in some cases do need to be separated. They are being trafficked. They are being abused. In other cases, we need to make sure they're back with their parents. And we're not able to sort through any of that. It is counties and cities who usually have the child welfare systems that can assist, but we are getting zero information. We're having hundreds of children dropped into our city with no information, no links back to their parents. Those that should be with their parents need to be reunified. Those who need counsel should be able to have counsel and access in these detention centers. And also those who need to be separated, we should be caring for them under that law.
Mayor Garcetti, another question, Mayor Garcetti. From members of Congress to mayors to everyday people, there does seem to be a dearth of clear information about what's next. And in terms of what happens now that the executive order has been lifted, how do you relay that as mayors to your constituents, that lack of information, that lack of clarity?
Well, that's exactly right. I say don't let up. Just because of an executive order yesterday, it raises as many questions as it seeks to solve. It does nothing for the children that are going to be crying here behind us tonight. It does nothing for those parents that are separated from their children today. And it doesn't say moving forward exactly what will be done. There is a maximum of 20 days that people can be detained. Will this administration, after 20 days, be releasing people, families now, that are going to be presumably held together? So we need to keep this pressure up, and we need Congress to do its job now. We need legislation that will resolve this and keep families together. And that's just the first step. Then live up to your word on Dreamers, then go to comprehensive immigration reform. That is my message to my constituents. Don't let up. You have done something beautiful. By reaching into our hearts and into our souls, we have been able to turn the tide. Now we must push forward and make sure that no child is separated from his or her parents.
Yeah. Two of the pillars of our great democracy, obviously, are constitutional clarity and transparency. And the inability to get access to these types of facilities, actually lay eyes on children and families and see what's going on, is a great challenge. Even under the previous administrations, we were able to work with the Office of Refugee Resettlement on engaging with unaccompanied minors and making sure that they were safe and they were taken care of. We were even able to do that with Syrian refugees, but we're unable to do that right now. I believe that the collective pressure of people on both sides of the aisle at all levels of government will continue to push the administration to do the right thing and respond quickly in a humane manner to meeting the needs of these children. In our city, in Columbia, South Carolina, I'm sitting on a missive later today. Our citizens are asking, how can we help? And there are a number of wonderful grassroots efforts happening around the country. Some have birthed themselves on social media, in which people can lend their gifts, their talents, and their treasures to help. But we will require some type of assistance from the federal government in allowing the transparency and allowing us to help. So we're going to just keep pushing. We're not going to let up. This is indeed, I believe, one of many, but I believe the greatest humanitarian crisis of this first quarter of our century. Questions? Yes, sir.
As a delegation, if you're turned back, what's the next step?
Well, I want to make it clear. We have formally requested of the Department of Health and Human Services access to the facility. It has been denied. We have been told that if we want to access, we will have to come submit it, and hopefully we'll get approval in a couple of weeks. The same response that members of Congress and several governors apparently have received. We will continue to push for access to the facilities. That is a piece of the puzzle. We wanted to, as the elected leaders of our various cities, to be able to lay eyes on these children, to be able to go back to the people that we represent both individually and collectively to say that we've laid eyes on these children and this is what is happening, regardless of what you may see on the news, on your medium of choice. That has been denied or at least delayed, and we know the quote that justice delayed is often justice denied. We will continue to push, but the battle does not stop here. We will continue to push for justice for all these children and families. Ma'am.
Dozens of these kids are separated from their parents right now. Is there a process to reunify them with their parents?
I'm not sure. Yeah, that is a challenge. And I don't want to dominate the microphone. I want to make sure we are a group of equals here. So if any of my colleagues want to step up and grab the microphone, feel free to do so. That is the core of the problem. We do not know how the administration plans to reunify these thousands of children. My children are at camp this week, and I worry about them every night. I know where they are. They are under the eyes of trained, watchful adults who've cared for them in the past. I can only imagine what these parents are going through and what these children are going through. We need clarity from the administration as exactly what will happen next. How are we working to reunify these families and as quickly as possible? And there is a role for local governments, for state governments, for people who care about humanity to play, but it requires clarity from the administration, from Health and Human Services, from Homeland Security, the Attorney General, and the White House to give us that direction.
Mayor, have you thought about going to the U.S. House of Representatives Oversight Committee of HHS, get a bipartisan Congress people, and then have them look into the facilities versus every elected official that wants to come through here, and then it's almost like a zoo. Does that make any sense? See my point?
I see your point. The reality is,
oversight, so let them
sure.
do the oversight.
Sure.
That's
Well, just being frank and again trying to stay on point. We've been looking for oversight from Congress on a number of issues for a number of years. All right, so we that certainly may actually make its way to a list of requests that we may make. But oversight needs to be oversight. It does not diminish the role and the responsibility that we have as leaders in our community to push, but that's not a bad idea. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to stream across the world the images of what's happening all across this country. We can do better. We will do better. This is the United States of America. We're going to start acting like it.